The unexpected boldness of a small fleet. The Galactic Council chamber shimmered with the light of distant stars, casting an ethereal glow over the vast, circular hall. Representatives from hundreds of species, some humanoid, others entirely alien, sat in the elevated seats that surrounded the platform. Their eyes, bright with centuries of experience, fixated on the figure standing alone at its center. Ryan Duval, Earth's representative, felt a twinge of nervousness in his chest. This was a pivotal moment, not just for him, but for all of humanity. In this vast universe, where power was measured by fleets that could obliterate entire worlds, Earth was a speck. Its ships, crude in comparison to the behemoth war vessels of the galactic empires, seemed laughable. Yet here he was, standing proud in his Earth uniform, ready to speak on behalf of a planet that had only recently earned its place in the galactic spotlight. Honorable members of the Galactic Council, Duval began, his voice unwavering despite the tension in the air. I stand before you today, not as an emissary of a powerful empire, but as the representative of a species that has learned to fight with ingenuity, resilience, and heart. His eyes swept across the room, meeting the gazes of various representatives, most of whom were already rolling their eyes or whispering to each other. We come here today to offer our fleet as proof of our readiness to join the community of the stars, he continued. A small, confident smile tugged at his lips as he pressed a button on his wrist device, activating the hologram. The shimmering image of 5 sleek human warships appeared above him, each one smaller than the massive ships surrounding them. Immediately, a ripple of laughter spread through the chamber. Some of the alien representatives chuckled openly, others sneered, and a few even snorted in disbelief. Duval's heart sank slightly, but he held his ground. He had expected this reaction. Humanity was the newcomer, the underdog in a galaxy full of centuries-old empires. But he had faith in Earth's potential, faith in what they could do with a little creativity and determination. Is that all? Came a booming voice from the back. It was Tagore, the massive insectoid representative from the Drachnid Empire. His 6 black eyes narrowed as he observed the tiny human fleet. You call that a fleet? We send more ships than that to patrol a single trade route. Laughter erupted, and Duval could feel the weight of the mockery bearing down on him. But instead of backing down, he stood taller. He didn't flinch. The laughter only fueled his resolve. We may be small, but we have learned to fight in ways you could never imagine, Duval replied, his voice steady. He knew the aliens didn't understand yet. They didn't know Earth's true power. Another alien, this one with shimmering golden scales and multiple long tentacles, sneered from his perch. Small ships, weak technology. Your ships would fit in the cargo hold of a single vessel in our fleet. What could you possibly bring to the table? Duval's expression didn't change, but inside, he felt the tiniest flicker of frustration. But he wasn't here to argue about size or numbers. He was here to prove something far more important. Quality matters more than quantity, Duval responded, his tone calm yet firm. He pressed a button on his wrist device again, zooming in on the flagship of the Earth fleet, the EFS Falcon. Its sleek silver hull gleamed in the hologram, an imposing yet elegant ship designed with the latest human innovations in mind. The Falcon is only one of our ships, but it represents the future of human technology, Duval said confidently. And it's only the beginning. At that moment, the laughter began to die down. Some of the younger representatives, those from races that had only recently emerged from the ashes of war, looked at the hologram with growing curiosity. They understood that in battle, size was not always the deciding factor. They understood the value of cunning and surprise. Do not mistake our size for weakness, Duval continued, his voice ringing clear through the chamber. We've faced threats that have nearly wiped us out, yet we are still here. And we will fight to the end to protect what we have. Just as Duval finished speaking, his wrist device buzzed. An urgent message blinked on the small screen. He read it quickly, his lips curving into the slightest smile. The message was from Captain Alan of the Falcon. It was short but effective. "Ready when you are, Ambassador. We've prepared the demonstration." Duval straightened his back. "Perhaps, Admiral Tagore, you'll see for yourself the true strength of the Earth fleet sooner than you think." Gore's mandibles clicked, clearly unimpressed, but Duval could see the first seeds of doubt being planted in the older alien's eyes. "Your confidence is admirable, human," Tagore said gruffly. "But size is power. A small fleet will never stand against the might of an empire like mine." Duval's smile deepened, a quiet certainty settling in his chest. "Perhaps, Admiral. But sometimes it's not the size of the fleet that matters. It's how you use it." With that, Duval turned and left the council chamber, his heart beating fast with anticipation. The time had come to show the galaxy exactly what humanity was capable of, and he wasn't going to let their ridicule stop him. As he stepped onto the transport back to Earth's flagship, Duval couldn't help but think of the young, wide-eyed crew members aboard the Falcon. They had trained for this moment. They had prepared for the challenge ahead. And while the galaxy might laugh at them now, they wouldn't be laughing when the Earth fleet made its move. A new kind of power. The moment the door to the transport closed behind Ambassador Ryan Duval, he let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. The mocking laughter of the council still echoed in his ears, but the weight of their skepticism no longer bothered him. He'd expected it. What mattered now was what he knew to be true. Humanity had something different to offer. And soon, the whole galaxy would understand that. As the transport sped through the vastness of space toward Earth's flagship, the Falcon, Duval sat in silence, the hum of the engines filling the air around him. His mind raced with strategies, with the plan that was set in motion. The Falcon wasn't just a ship. It was the manifestation of humanity's potential. Its design was a perfect fusion of old Earth ingenuity and new cutting-edge technology. The humans who served aboard it had been chosen for their skill and creativity, not just their military prowess. And they were about to show the galaxy that brains could outsmart brawn. Back on the Falcon, Captain Alan watched as the transport docked with the flagship. She didn't need to see the look on Duval's face to know that the council's response had been predictable. Laughter. Dismissal. Underestimation. She had lived through it too many times before. Yet, as always, she carried a quiet resolve. Her crew, a mix of the brightest engineers, pilots, and tacticians Earth could offer, were more than ready for what was coming. "Ready to prove them wrong, Captain," Lieutenant Kiran, the tactical officer, asked from the bridge. Alan smiled, a sharp, determined smile. "We're about to make them question everything they think they know about power." The Falcon was unlike any ship in the galaxy. Its technology was sleek and advanced, but it was also designed for versatility. Unlike the enormous, lumbering warships of the alien empires, the Falcon could adapt, change, and outmaneuver. Its hull was covered in adaptive nanofibers that could shift shape, creating new surfaces and defenses depending on the situation. It was powered by an experimental quantum reactor that provided near unlimited energy, and it could outpace even the most advanced alien ships in terms of speed. But the true weapon of the Falcon was not its technology, it was its crew. Every person aboard had been trained to think outside the box, to take on challenges that required more than brute strength. They were masters of resourcefulness, and they knew how to use their surroundings to their advantage. It was a crew built for creativity, not just for warfare. "Set course for the designated coordinates," Captain Alan ordered, her voice calm but filled with purpose. "We'll show them what Earth's fleet is truly capable of." The Falcon powered up, the ship's engines humming with energy as they prepared for their first demonstration to the galaxy. Across the galaxy, Tagore, the Drachnid admiral, sat in the command center of his flagship, surrounded by a sea of holographic screens. He was reviewing the reports from the council meeting, his mandibles twitching in irritation. The audacity of the human ambassador, the nerve to stand there, alone, with a fleet of only 5 ships and claim they were ready for galactic integration. Tagore had seen entire empires rise and fall, and the idea of humans challenging his empire, one of the most powerful in the galaxy, seemed laughable. But even as the thought crossed his mind, a small, unfamiliar feeling flickered in his chest. Doubt. "Admiral, the human fleet is moving," came a voice from his communications officer. Tagore looked up sharply. "What do you mean, moving?" The officer tapped at the console. "The Falcon, the flagship of their fleet, has just entered a hyperlane. It's heading toward the region of space near the Drachnid Outer Territories." The word outer sent a ripple through the room. The Drachnid Empire controlled vast swathes of the galaxy, but the outer territories were less stable, filled with asteroid fields, ion storms, and unexplored sectors of space. Not the kind of place most ships ventured unless they were desperate, or looking to disappear. "Are they insane?" Tagore muttered, more to himself than anyone else. But there was a flicker of curiosity in his mind. Why would the humans take such a risk? Why, when they knew full well they were outmatched, would they venture into such dangerous space? His thoughts were interrupted as a new report came in. A fleet of ships, Drachnid ships, was heading in the same direction. A task force led by his own flagship. He had orders to maintain a strong presence along the borders, and with the humans' reckless advance, he figured it would be a good time to remind them just who held power in this galaxy. "Dispatch a fleet of interceptors," Tagore ordered. "I want them to feel the weight of the Drachnid Empire." Back on the Falcon, Captain Alan stood on the bridge, watching as the stars outside warped into streaks of light, the ship making its way through the hyperlane at incredible speeds. She knew the risks. The outer territories were dangerous, and the Drachnid fleet would be waiting for them. But that was exactly why they were going. The Falcon was small, fast, and designed for missions like this. The mission was to show the galaxy that humans didn't need to play by the same rules everyone else did. "We're on track to enter the outer territories in less than 5 hours, Karen reported. "It looks like we're in the clear for now." But Aylin knew better than to relax. She had seen the Drachnid's tactics firsthand, and they were formidable. However, the Falcon had one advantage they didn't: creativity. "Prepare the ship for evasive maneuvers," Aylin said, turning toward the helm. "We might have company soon." As she spoke, her wrist device buzzed, and a new message appeared on the screen. "The Drachnid fleet has been deployed. They're headed toward the same region of space." Aylin grinned. "It's about to get interesting." With a swift movement, she tapped her wrist device. "Lieutenant Kiran, begin activating the ship's decoys. We're going to show them a trick or two they've never seen before." The crew braced for what was coming next. The Falcon was not just a ship. It was a statement, a declaration of human ingenuity, resilience, and the belief that even the smallest fleet could defy the odds. The time for proving themselves was now, and as the Falcon entered the outer territories, a new kind of power was about to reveal itself to the galaxy. The stars stretched by as the Falcon approached the border of Drachnid space, the hum of anticipation filling the ship. The time for diplomacy had ended. Now, humanity would speak with actions, and in the heart of the Falcon, Aylin knew one thing for certain. The Drachnid Empire had no idea what was coming. The shadow of the Drachnid Empire. The outer territories were a place few dared to venture. Jagged asteroid fields, ion storms, and the dark, uncharted void of space made this region feel like the edge of the universe itself. The Falcon glided through the vast emptiness, its sleek hull cutting through the darkness like a needle through fabric. On the bridge, Captain Aylin stood, her eyes fixed on the holographic display as the stars stretched into streaks of light around them. "Distance to the Drachnid fleet?" Aylin asked without looking up. 5 minutes, Lieutenant Kiran responded, his fingers dancing over the control panel. "They're closing in fast. We've detected multiple ships, including 2 large dreadnoughts at the front of the formation. Their fleet outnumbers ours 20-1. A small smile tugged at Aylin's lips. She had expected this, but it didn't faze her. "Let them think they have the upper hand. Our strength isn't in numbers." Her crew exchanged knowing glances. It wasn't the first time they'd faced an overwhelming force. Humanity had always been the underdog, and that was just how they liked it. With their small fleet, they had won battles against enemies far larger and more powerful, relying on their ability to think outside the box. "Activate the decoy drones," Ellen ordered. "Set them to deploy at maximum distance, and make sure they mimic the signature of our flagship. Let's make sure they're distracted for a while." Kieran gave a sharp nod and began his work. On the screen, several small dots appeared, mimicking the signature of the Falcon. The decoys were advanced pieces of technology, designed to emit similar energy readings, making it difficult for enemy ships to tell them apart from the real thing. The plan was simple: create confusion, draw the enemy's attention, and buy enough time for the Falcon to make its move. The Falcon was no stranger to high-risk tactics. Its design allowed it to adapt to any situation, and Captain Aylin had spent countless hours devising strategies that relied on speed, agility, and surprise, qualities that the Drachnid fleet, with its immense size and slow-moving vessels, couldn't hope to match. The crew braced themselves as the tension in the air thickened. The Drachnids were fast approaching, their ships like dark shadows on the edge of the galaxy, their presence filling the void. And yet, despite the odds, Aylin felt no fear. She had full faith in her crew and in the ship beneath her feet. "Helm, prepare for evasive maneuvers," Aylin said, her voice steady. "We'll need to move fast once we're detected." "Understood," replied Lieutenant Jia, the navigator, her hands gliding over the controls, setting course for a sharp turn to the left, bringing us into an asteroid field for cover. Aylin nodded approvingly. The Falcon wasn't just fast, it was flexible. If they could use the asteroid field as a shield, they might be able to outmaneuver the Drachnid fleet, throwing them off track long enough to land a decisive blow. Meanwhile, aboard the Drachnid flagship, Tigor observed his fleet's advance with a growing sense of anticipation. The humans had entered the outer territories, a move he considered reckless. His ships, built for power and overwhelming force, had no trouble tracking the humans, even in the most hostile regions of space. "Admiral, we've locked onto the human fleet's signal. It's coming from the designated coordinates," the communications officer reported. Gore's 6 black eyes narrowed as he studied the readings. The Falcon was a small ship, easily distinguishable from the larger fleet of the Drachnid Empire. Yet there was something strange about the energy signature. It didn't match the usual patterns of human vessels. He leaned forward, his mandibles clicking in irritation. "They're using decoys," Tigor muttered under his breath. "Clever little humans. Should we engage the decoys?" the officer asked, already preparing to give the order. "No," Tigor replied, his voice cold and calculating. "Let them play their tricks. We'll focus on the real target. The Falcon will not escape us." His orders were clear. The Drachnid fleet would advance, slowly and deliberately, drawing the humans in like prey, confident that the Falcon would make a mistake. Back aboard the Falcon, Aylin studied the approaching Drachnid fleet on her own holographic display, her brow furrowed. She knew the Drachnids wouldn't fall for the decoy. Tigor was too experienced for that. Still, it would buy them some time. "Captain," Lieutenant Kieran spoke up, "the Drachnid fleet is already on the move. They're splitting into 2 groups. One group is advancing directly toward us, and the other is moving to intercept the decoys. I think they're trying to box us in." Aylin grinned. "They think they have us cornered. Let's make them regret that." She keyed in a series of commands, her fingers flying over the controls. The Falcon responded instantly, its powerful engines shifting the ship's trajectory in a sharp arc. The ship surged forward, its streamlined form cutting through the darkness with newfound speed. "Get us to that asteroid field, Jia," Aylin ordered, "and get us there fast. We need cover." Jia's hands danced over the console, and the ship complied, its sleek body darting between the asteroids with the grace of a predator. We're in position, Gia reported. The Drachnids are closing in fast, but we're not in their line of sight yet. Good, Aelin replied. Now we wait. The crew's nerves were taut as they waited in the silence of space, their only company the distant hum of the Falcon's engines and the faint heartbeat of their own breathing. Aelin's mind was sharp, her focus honed in on the task at hand. The Drachnids may have had size, but they didn't have speed, and they certainly didn't have creativity. As the Falcon hid in the shadow of an asteroid, Aelin had one thought on her mind. Let them come. We'll make them wish they'd never underestimated us. On the Drachnid flagship, Tigor watched the readings as the human ship appeared to vanish behind an asteroid. His fleet had made their move. The humans would think they had escaped, but he knew better. He had trained his fleet to anticipate all manner of human trickery. Captain, prepare for a full assault, Tigor ordered. We'll catch them in the field. They can't outrun us forever. But Tigor didn't realize that the humans weren't running. They were waiting. And the moment he made his move, the Falcon would be ready to strike. The trap is set. The stillness of space hung around the Falcon like a thick fog. Aelin's fingers rested lightly on the controls, her eyes fixed on the holographic display. The asteroid field ahead was dense with jagged rocks, scattered debris, and massive chunks of space rock that had been drifting in the void for eons. Perfect cover. We're in position, Captain, Gia said, her voice calm despite the tension in the air. The Drachnid fleet is still closing in. They're almost within range. Hold steady, Aelin replied, her voice as cool as the stars surrounding them. Wait until they're in the middle of the field. Once they're distracted by the decoys, we make our move. The Falcon was nestled perfectly within the asteroid cluster, its hull blending seamlessly with the dark, jagged rocks around it. If the Drachnids didn't know what to look for, they would never spot them. But it wasn't just the Falcon they were hiding from. Aelin was already anticipating the attack that would come once they were detected. The Drachnids were sure to launch an assault once they realized their decoy ships had been outmaneuvered. Status on the decoys? Aelin asked, her eyes never leaving the display. Still functioning at full capacity, Kirin replied, tapping away at his console. The Drachnids are definitely following the false trail. They're taking the bait. Aelin's lips curled into a faint smile. Good, she thought. Let them chase shadows. The decoys were still far enough from the real Falcon to keep the Drachnid fleet occupied. The enemy ships were moving methodically, confident in their numbers, and still under the false assumption that they had trapped the humans. They would think they were cornering a helpless target, unaware that the real danger was right under their noses. We've got about 30 minutes, Lieutenant Kirin added, breaking the silence. Before they realize something's off. Make it count, Aelin said. We have one shot at this. The seconds felt like hours as they waited. Outside, the massive Drachnid ships lumbered toward their decoy targets, blind to the fact that the Falcon had already slipped past them, its course carefully adjusted to stay out of their line of sight. But Aelin wasn't only relying on stealth. The Falcon was designed to be unpredictable, to strike fast and hard, with no warning and no mercy. In the silence of the bridge, the hum of the engines was almost a lullaby. But the crew knew better. Their hearts were in their throats, their minds constantly moving, ready for the inevitable moment when the Falcon would need to spring into action. Captain, Kirin said suddenly, his eyes widening in concern. The Drachnid flagship. They're shifting their formation. They've realized something's off. Aelin straightened immediately. They're smarter than I gave them credit for. The Drachnid ships were repositioning. Slowly but surely, they were beginning to circle the asteroid field, using their sensors to scan every corner of it. It was clear now that they had figured out that the Falcon was hiding somewhere in the field, but that didn't mean they would catch them. Gia, move us to the far side of the field. Set course for 60 degrees to the right. Keep low. Stay between the largest asteroids. The navigator didn't hesitate. Her hands flew over the controls, and the Falcon responded instantly, slipping behind a massive rock formation that obscured the ship from the Drachnid sensors. Aelin watched the display closely as the enemy fleet adjusted its course, searching for any sign of the humans. "They'll be here in minutes," Kirin said. "We've got to make this strike count." "Agreed," Aelin said with a nod. "Prepare the ship for combat." On the Drachnid flagship, Tigor felt the shift in the air. The humans had done something clever, and now he was being forced to adapt. His ships were closing in, but the human ship was still hidden. His fleet had split, and now they were systematically scanning the asteroid field, but he still couldn't find the Falcon. "They've disappeared," he muttered, his eyes flicking from one screen to another. His fingers drummed impatiently on the arm of his command chair. He was too cautious to give the order for a full assault without being absolutely sure of his target. "Admiral, we're picking up energy fluctuations near Sector 5, one of his officers reported. "It's faint, but it could be the Falcon." Tigor's mandibles clicked in frustration. The humans were far craftier than he had anticipated. If they were anywhere near Sector 5, that would put them right in the path of his fleet. He didn't want to make any more miscalculations. "I'll take care of this," he said, rising from his chair. His posture was as imposing as his massive form. "Ready the interceptors. Prepare to launch an attack as soon as we make contact. We'll flush them out." Back on the Falcon, Aelin's eyes narrowed as the Drachnid fleet drew closer. The moment of truth was near. She could feel the pulse of the ship beneath her feet, its advanced systems humming with energy, ready to respond to her every command. "Status on our weapon systems?" Aelin asked, her voice crisp. "All systems are ready," Kirin confirmed, his fingers flying over his console. "We've got full power to the forward plasma cannons, Captain. Everything's lined up." "Good," Aelin said. "Now we wait." The Drachnid fleet was almost in position. Aelin could see them moving closer on the scanner, their massive ships blocking the narrow paths between the asteroids. They were getting too close to the Falcon's position. Any moment now, they'd realize they had been chasing shadows, and that would be the signal for Aelin to spring her trap. The Falcon was ready. "Captain, the Drachnid interceptors are launching," Kirin warned. "They'll be on us in under a minute." Aelin's lips curled into a confident smile. "Then we hit them first." With a quick series of commands, Aelin activated the ship's advanced tactical systems. The Falcon's engines roared to life as it surged forward, darting between two asteroids with the speed of a comet. The enemy interceptors, caught off guard by the sudden maneuver, barely had time to adjust their aim. "Fire the plasma cannons," Aelin ordered. A burst of blinding light erupted from the Falcon, sending a powerful wave of energy across the battlefield. The first interceptor exploded in a burst of flame, while another one veered off course, unable to withstand the shockwave. The Falcon was moving at breakneck speeds, weaving between rocks and debris, its weapon systems cutting through the darkness. In that moment, the Drachnids knew they had made a grave mistake. The humans weren't running. They were fighting back. "Prepare for evasive maneuvers," Aelin called out. "Full power to the engines." And with that, the trap was set. The humans had made their move, and now, the Drachnid fleet was about to face the full force of their ingenuity, the wrath of the underdog. The asteroid field erupted in a flash of blinding light as the Falcon darted from behind its cover, its plasma cannons roaring to life. Aelin's heart pounded as the ship surged forward, weaving between massive rocks and sending deadly bursts of energy toward the advancing Drachnid interceptors. "Direct hit. One of their interceptors is down," Kirin shouted, his voice full of excitement, but still steady as he worked the controls. "The others are scattering, taking evasive action." Aelin's grip tightened on the command console. This was it. The Falcon was in the thick of it now, and they were outnumbered by far. But Aelin wasn't worried. Her crew was trained for moments like this, moments where the odds were stacked high, where they had to outthink, outmaneuver, and outblast their enemies. "Bring us around, Gia," she commanded. "Let's lead them into the heart of the field. We'll use the debris to our advantage." The ship obeyed, its sleek hull darting through the asteroid field like a fish among rocks. The Drachnid interceptors, smaller but faster than the capital ships, gave chase, their heavy blasters firing wide as they struggled to keep up. But the Falcon wasn't just fast. It was nimble, able to twist and turn with astonishing agility, its advanced thrusters kicking it into tight spirals and sudden drops, confusing the enemy at every turn. "We've got another one on our tail," Kiran warned. "It's gaining on us, Captain. It's a direct hit if we don't do something fast." Aylin glanced over her shoulder at the tactical display, her mind already calculating her next move. "Gia, hard starboard. Slam the engines at full power. Then take us low." The Falcon responded instantly, twisting violently as it shot toward the surface of a nearby asteroid. The Drachnid interceptor, too slow to follow the maneuver, crashed into the rocks with a resounding explosion, sending fragments of metal and stone scattering through space. "Nice work, Captain," Kiran said, his voice filled with awe. "That was impressive." "Keep your focus, Kiran," Aylin replied, her tone unwavering. "This is only the beginning." On the Drachnid flagship, Tigor slammed his fist against the armrest of his chair in frustration. His fleet had lost 2 interceptors, and the humans were proving more elusive than he had anticipated. He had underestimated them. No, he had underestimated their ship. He had assumed their small size made them vulnerable. That assumption was now shattered. "Admiral," one of his officers called, "the Falcon is moving deeper into the asteroid field. They've disabled 2 interceptors and are evading our remaining forces with extreme precision." Gore's 6 eyes flicked to the holographic display. He could see the Falcon darting through the field, like a predator that knew the terrain better than its hunters. A cold anger began to build within him. "They're clever. I'll give them that," Tigor muttered. "But they won't be able to outrun us forever." He turned to the communications officer. "Send the order. Initiate the full assault." Back on the Falcon, Aylin's breath was steady, her eyes scanning the battlefield. The Drachnid fleet was regrouping. The interceptors were still chasing her, but she knew it wouldn't be long before the larger ships came into play. The real threat was just about to arrive. "We've got a new problem," Kiran said grimly. "The Drachnid dreadnoughts have adjusted their course. They're closing in, and their heavy weaponry is coming online." Aylin felt a chill run down her spine, but she didn't show it. The dreadnoughts were the real challenge. Their massive size and firepower could obliterate the Falcon with one well-placed shot. She had to act quickly. "Gia, prep the reverse thrusters. We're about to make a sharp exit," she ordered, her mind racing with possibilities. "Kiran, get me a weapons lock on the lead dreadnought's power core." Kiran worked his console, his fingers flying over the glowing interface. "I've got it, Captain," locking onto the power core of the lead dreadnought. "Should I fire?" Aylin hesitated for a split second, her mind weighing the risks. They didn't have the firepower to take down a dreadnought in a single strike, but the core was their best shot. A hit there could cripple one of the Drachnid's most powerful ships and buy them valuable time. "Do it," Aylin said with a calm resolve. A blinding beam shot out from the Falcon, cutting through the void toward the lead dreadnought. For a moment, the ship seemed to shimmer as it absorbed the shot. Then, with a massive explosion, the dreadnought's power core detonated in a violent flash, sending shockwaves rippling through space. The massive ship shuddered as its systems went offline, sparks and debris flying from its now disabled hull. "Yes," Kiran exclaimed. "We've crippled their lead dreadnought." But Aylin knew this was far from over. The Drachnids had dozens of ships, and now they would be furious. "We don't have much time," Aylin muttered. "Get us out of here, Gia." Full reverse thrust. The Falcon blasted away from the scene, its engines roaring as it shot backward, narrowly dodging another round of incoming fire from the remaining Drachnid interceptors. Gore's rage reached a boiling point as he watched his flagship's main sensor display. The Falcon had taken out his lead dreadnought in a single shot, and now his fleet was in disarray. But the humans weren't finished yet. "Admiral, we have reports from the remaining interceptors. They've engaged the Falcon again, but it's maneuvering like a ghost. It's almost impossible to track it," one of his officers reported. Gore's mandibles ground together in frustration. He had believed that size, power, and numbers would crush the human fleet, but instead they had been caught in a deadly dance they weren't prepared for. The humans had something far more dangerous than advanced technology. They had cunning. "We need to adapt," Gore said coldly. "Increase firepower. Focus everything on the Falcon. I'll personally lead the charge." Back on the Falcon, Aelin could sense the shift. The Drachnid fleet wasn't scattering anymore. They were adapting. They were closing in. Karen's voice snapped through her thoughts. "Captain, the dreadnoughts are coming back online. They're focusing all firepower on us now. They'll be on us in a matter of minutes." Aelin's mind raced as she calculated her options. The Falcon was quick, but it couldn't keep outrunning the entire Drachnid fleet forever. She needed to force a decision now. There was only one thing left to do. "Prepare to initiate the Nova Protocol," she ordered, her voice steady, betraying none of the tension that was building inside her. "Set the course. I'm taking us straight through the heart of their formation." "Captain, are you sure?" Karen asked, eyes wide with disbelief. "Do it," Aelin said, her jaw set in determination. They were going to show the Drachnids what humanity could do when cornered. If they couldn't outrun them, if they couldn't outgun them, then they'd have to outsmart them, outblast them, and fight like the underdogs they were. The trap was set. Now it was time to spring it. The final gambit. The Falcon roared as its engines flared to life, tearing through the empty space between asteroids with a speed that seemed almost reckless. Aelin's eyes were locked on the sensor readouts, her pulse steady despite the chaos unfolding around her. The Drachnid fleet had finally cornered them. But the humans weren't backing down. "We're heading straight for the heart of their fleet," Kieran said, his voice low, almost as if he couldn't believe what he was hearing. "Are you sure about this, Captain?" Aelin's fingers gripped the command console so tightly that her knuckles turned white. There was no turning back now. The Nova Protocol was a desperate move, one that relied on every single member of her crew working together as a unit. If they didn't succeed, the Falcon, and possibly humanity's place in this galaxy, would be lost. "Trust me, Kiran," she said, her voice unwavering. "We won't go down without a fight." "Understood," Kiran replied, his tone resolute. "Prepping the Nova Protocol now." The Nova Protocol was a secret tactic, a final gambit designed to break through the most heavily fortified fleets. It was risky, relying on the Falcon's advanced drive systems and a calculated burst of energy to temporarily overwhelm the Drachnid ship's shields. But it had never been tested in combat. Until now. On the Drachnid flagship, Gore was preparing for the final assault. His fleet had surrounded the Falcon, their massive dreadnoughts and cruisers forming a perfect wall of destruction. The human ship was small, fast, and deadly, but it was only one ship. Surely, it was only a matter of time before they were wiped out. "Admiral, we've got a spike in energy readings from the Falcon," one of his officers said, his voice tinged with concern. "It's coming from their core systems." Gore's eyes narrowed. He had sensed that the humans were up to something. They had been too evasive, too resourceful. But now he understood. They were preparing some kind of final maneuver, something that would put their ship, and his fleet, at risk. "Prepare for evasive action," Gore ordered, his voice booming across the command deck. "Lock onto their energy signature. I want all weapons on standby. This may be their last move." His officers scrambling to fire up their weapon systems, but Gore knew that even his fleet's overwhelming firepower couldn't guarantee success. The humans were unpredictable. Back aboard the Falcon, Aylin's mind raced as she monitored the rapidly approaching Drachnid ships. The enemy had closed the gap, and now they were surrounding them on all sides. There was no more room to maneuver. The Falcon had been forced into a corner. "Nova Protocol is ready," Kieran called from his station, his voice steady, but tinged with a hint of anxiety. "Initiating now." Aylin's hand hovered over the final command, her breath steady, but every instinct telling her to hesitate. She had trusted this plan with everything she had, but there were so many variables. If the Falcon was hit in the wrong spot at the wrong moment, they could all be vaporized in an instant. But there was no choice. If they didn't act now, they would be crushed. "Do it," Aylin said, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade. The entire ship seemed to shudder as the Nova Protocol activated. In an instant, the Falcon's engines flared with a brilliant burst of energy, casting a blinding light across the battlefield. The ship surged forward at unimaginable speed, its advanced drive system pushing beyond what should have been possible. For a split second, it was as if time itself had warped. Then the Falcon was gone. In that moment, the Drachnid fleet was blind. The Falcon had broken through the enemy's defenses. The blinding burst of energy had overloaded the Drachnid ship shields, causing massive disruptions in their targeting systems. The once coordinated formation fell apart as confusion spread like wildfire. Aylin knew it wouldn't last long, but she had just created the one opening they needed. "Now, Kieran, fire everything," Aylin yelled. Kieran didn't hesitate. His fingers slammed down on the firing controls, sending waves of plasma and ion blasts hurtling toward the nearest Drachnid dreadnought. The beams ripped through the space between them, tearing into the alien vessel with explosive force. The first dreadnought exploded in a flash of fire and debris. "We've got a hit," Kieran shouted, his voice full of disbelief. "They're weakening." There. But Aylin didn't have time to celebrate. The Drachnid fleet was recovering. They would regroup and strike back. She needed to keep the pressure on, not let them regain their footing. "Gia," Aylin barked, "give me a hard left. We're not staying here." The Falcon lurched as its engines shifted into full reverse, and then the ship shot off to the side, narrowly avoiding a retaliatory strike from a Drachnid battleship. The asteroids around them became a blur as Gia expertly navigated the ship through a deadly maze of rock, buying them precious seconds. "We're not out of the woods yet," Aylin muttered under her breath. The Falcon's hull had sustained some damage, and several systems were offline. But the crew was alive, and they were fighting. The Falcon weaved through the asteroid field again, now in a series of quick, erratic maneuvers. The Drachnid ships were catching up, but their fire was erratic, thrown off by the Falcon's sudden movements. "We're not going to last much longer like this," Kieran said. "The Nova Protocol took a toll on our systems. We need to finish this now." Aylin's eyes narrowed as she focused on the display. She could see the Drachnid flagship, the heart of their entire operation, floating ominously at the center of the battlefield. It was still intact, and it was still fully armed. She couldn't afford to waste any more time. "Gia, full speed ahead. We're going straight for the flagship." Kieran's voice sounded tense. "Captain, we're not in fighting shape. They'll tear us apart. We're going to finish this, or we're going to die trying," Aylin said, her voice filled with determination. She wasn't just fighting for the Falcon. She was fighting for humanity's future. And this time, she wasn't going to back down. The Falcon surged forward, hurtling toward the Drachnid flagship. Every second felt like an eternity. The ship was battered, and the crew was exhausted, but Aylin's resolve was unshaken. The time for evasion was over. It was time to make their final stand.